Bjorn liked quiet places. That's why he had taken the assignment on Nara 7, a green and peaceful planet far from Earth. The outpost was small, just one building, a few machines, and a tall antenna that reached for the sky like a metal tree. His job was simple: observe, record, and report anything unusual. Each morning, Bjorn walked outside in his thick grey suit and took readings. The air was fresh, the sky was always a pale orange, and large purple trees swayed gently in the wind. Birds with bright feathers flew low, and strange four-legged creatures watched him from a distance before running off. He had been here for 4 months now. Nothing dangerous had happened. At first, Bjorn enjoyed the silence. He could hear the soft hum of the machines, the wind brushing against the building, and the rustle of leaves. No people, no noise. Just peace. But after the second month, things started to feel different. Not scary, but strange, as if he wasn't alone. It began with small things. One morning, Bjorn found his toolbox open. He was sure he had closed it the night before. Another day, the kettle had been left out on the table full of water, though he hadn't used it. Then came the missing pages from his journal, just torn out neatly and gone. At first, he thought it might be forgetfulness. Maybe he was tired, maybe he wasn't paying attention, but it kept happening. One night, Bjorn stayed up later than usual, sitting at his desk with a warm drink. The outpost windows were large, giving a wide view of the forest outside. He stared into the trees, not really expecting to see anything. Then, movement. Just for a second, he thought he saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees. Tall and thin, not like any animal he had seen. It stood still, almost hidden by the shadows. But he felt it watching him. When he looked directly at it, it was gone. Bjorn told himself it was nothing. A trick of the light. His tired eyes. Still, he set up a small camera outside the next day. Not for the report, just for himself. That night, after finishing his log entry, he checked the footage. His hands stopped moving. There, on the screen, in the still frame, was a figure. It stood just outside the outpost, silent, still, and watching. It had no suit, no mask. Its skin looked pale, its eyes large and dark. It didn't come close, it didn't try to break in. It just stood there for hours, and then left before sunrise. Bjorn didn't sleep much that night. He didn't feel afraid. He felt curious. The next day, he cleaned the small table outside and left a book there. A simple one, an old Earth story with drawings. He sat inside and waited. In the morning, the book was gone, but in its place was something else, a smooth stone, shaped like a spiral. He had never seen anything like it before. It didn't belong to the planet's natural rocks. Bjorn held the stone in his hand for a long time. Who or what was out there? It wasn't just watching anymore, it was answering. From that moment on, the outpost didn't feel as quiet. The forest didn't feel as empty. Something was near, something was curious, and it was watching him. Bjorn placed the spiral-shaped stone on his desk. Every now and then, he would look at it, turn it over in his hand, or just stare at it in silence. It was smooth and cool, and it never seemed to get dusty, no matter how many days passed. He didn't know what it was made of, but he could feel it meant something. The next night, he left another book outside. This one had pictures of animals and plants from Earth. It was his favorite as a child. Again, the book was gone by morning. And again, something else was left behind. This time it was a piece of folded cloth. It was soft, sky blue in color, and had a strange symbol on it, like a circle with small lines around the edge. Bjorn had never seen it before. He checked all the alien species reports. No match. That evening, he stood near the window longer than usual, looking into the forest. Then he saw her. A figure stood halfway behind a tree, far enough not to be clear. but close enough for him to see it was a person. A girl. Not a child, but not old either. She was thin, with long arms, and hair that looked silver in the moonlight. Her skin was pale, and she wore something light and smooth, maybe the same kind of cloth she left him. She didn't move, just watched him. John didn't move either. He just looked back, quiet and calm. After a while, she slowly turned and disappeared into the trees. For the first time in weeks, Jorn smiled. The next day, he tried something new. He placed a drawing outside, a simple sketch of the outpost and the forest around it. Then he waited. At night, he looked out the window again. She was there, closer this time, standing still like before but not hiding. Her eyes were large and dark, but they didn't seem cold. They seemed curious. Jorn raised his hand slowly and gave a small wave. The girl tilted her head as if trying to understand. Then, slowly, she raised her hand too. She didn't wave, just held it up, matching his motion. Then she turned and walked back into the woods. When Jorn checked outside, the drawing was gone. In its place was a new one. But it wasn't his, it was hers. She had drawn something, rough lines, soft strokes. It showed two figures. One was clearly Jorn, standing in front of the outpost. The other was her, in the trees. There was no fear in the picture, only curiosity. Over the next few days, the quiet girl began to appear more often, always after dark. Always silent. Sometimes she left objects, a shell, a small wooden figure, even a flower that glowed faintly in the night. Sometimes Jorn left gifts too, his drawings, small tools, music recordings. She never spoke. But she was learning, and she was watching. Started calling her Lena in his mind. It wasn't her real name, he didn't know what that was. But it felt right. Then one night, as Jorn was reading in bed, he felt something, a presence. He looked up, and there she was, Lena, inside the outpost, inside his room. She didn't break in, she didn't force anything. Somehow, she had opened the door without a sound. She stood there at the edge of the room, her head low, her hands folded. Jorn didn't move. He was surprised, but not afraid. Lena took one step forward, then another. Her eyes were wide, not in fear, but wonder. She pointed to the bed, then to herself, then looked at him. Jorn understood. She wasn't asking for warmth or safety. She wanted to know what it felt like, to rest beside someone, to not be alone. He nodded gently. She climbed into the bed slowly and carefully, lying far at the edge, her back to him. Jorn didn't sleep for a long time. He just listened to her quiet breathing and, for the first time since arriving on Nara 7, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, Jorn woke early. He turned slowly, half expecting Lena to be gone. But she wasn't. She was still lying on the far side of the bed, curled up, quiet, watching the morning light come through the window. Her silver hair shimmered softly, and her dark eyes blinked slowly, as if trying to understand what morning meant. Jorn sat up. He didn't speak. He didn't want to scare her. Lena sat up too. She looked around the room, her fingers brushing against the blanket, the pillow, the corner of the bed. Everything seemed new to her, like a child seeing a home for the first time. Then, without warning, she pointed to a photo on the wall. It was a picture of Earth, blue and full of clouds. Jorn followed her finger and nodded. "That's where I'm from," he said softly. Lena tilted her head. Her lips moved just a little. No sound came out. Then, slowly, she touched her own chest and said, "Nah." Jorn's eyes widened. He hadn't told her that name. He had only thought it. But somehow she knew. "Yes," he said with a small smile. "Lena." She smiled back, a small one, but real. The next few days were different. Lena no longer stayed outside. She began exploring the outpost, walking slowly through the halls, touching walls, sitting quietly in corners while Jorn worked. She didn't speak much, but she listened. She watched, and sometimes she would repeat simple words. Water. Book. Sky. Jorn showed her how to use a tablet. She learned fast. She watched his hands carefully and copied every motion. In just 1 hour, she could draw shapes, type letters, and even play soft music. She loved music. Whenever it played, she would stop and listen as if the sounds were magic. One evening, Jorn found her sitting in the radio room. She had opened the signal logs and was staring at the waveforms. "Do you understand these?" he asked. She looked at him, then nodded slowly. "Do they speak to you?" She didn't answer, but she placed her hand on the radio's metal side and closed her eyes, like she was listening through it, not just with ears, but with something deeper. That night, she didn't come to his room, but she left something on his table, a small handmade object. It looked like a star, built from tiny bits of metal and wire. Attached to it was a paper. On the paper was one word: home? Jorn wasn't sure what she meant. Was she asking where he called home, or was she asking if this was her home now? He didn't know the answer. Not yet. The next morning they went for a walk outside the outpost. The air was calm and the sun was high above the orange sky. Jorn showed her the scanner, how it picked up movement and heat. She showed him a hidden path through the trees, one he had never seen before. They walked quietly, and when they reached a high hill, they sat together and watched the forest move like waves. Suddenly, Lena pointed to a spot in the sky. Jorn squinted. There, it was, just barely visible, a blinking light, a signal, something in orbit. "Ship?" he asked. Lena didn't answer, but her face grew serious. She looked worried, and Jorn knew something was coming, something she hadn't told him yet. That night, Lena came to his room again. This time, she didn't stay at the edge. She sat beside him on the floor, holding the small metal star she had made. She whispered a word he had never heard before. It wasn't in Earth language. It was soft, full of meaning he couldn't understand. Then she looked at him with calm eyes and said, "Soon." Jorn sat in silence. Outside, the wind began to pick up, and far above them, the light in the sky blinked once more, brighter than before. Something was on its way. For the next 2 days, the blinking light in the sky did not go away. It stayed in the same spot, growing a little brighter each night. Jorn checked the outpost systems, trying to find answers. The radar picked up nothing solid. No ship, no satellite. Just a soft pulse. Slow, quiet, and steady. A signal, but not one from Earth, not one he recognized. Jorn saved the sound and played it on loop in the lab. It was strange. Low, echoing, almost like a whisper. At first it seemed random, but Lena listened to it for hours. She sat close to the speaker, her eyes half closed, like she was remembering something. Then she stood up and looked at him. "It's a name," she said slowly. Jorn blinked. "A name?" She nodded. "Old name. From far away." "Yours?" She shook her head. "Not mine." That night Lena did not speak much. She stayed by the window, watching the blinking light in the sky. Jorn sat at his desk, writing in his log, but his thoughts kept drifting. Why had Lena come here? Why now? And who else knew about her? The next morning, Jorn woke up early. He found Lena already in the lab. She had connected several small devices, his tablet, the signal booster, the audio scanner, and created something new. A mix of metal, wires, and lights. It pulsed in the same rhythm as the signal in the sky. He walked closer. "What are you building?" he asked. She looked at him. A voice. A voice for who? For them. Yorn frowned. "Are they coming?" She nodded. "Yes." "When?" She looked down. "Soon. Days, maybe less." Jorn felt something tighten in his chest. "Are they like you?" Lena was quiet. Then she said, "They are not gentle." Later that day, the clouds over the forest grew dark, though there was no storm. The trees swayed harder, the birds flew lower, quieter. The animals that usually watched Yorn from a distance were gone. The planet itself felt like it was holding its breath. Inside the outpost, Yorn and Lena worked together. They checked the shields, the backup power, and the communication lines. Lena moved quickly, showing him how to strengthen certain systems in ways he didn't know. She didn't say how she knew. She just worked. And he followed. That night, when everything was done, Yorn made them both warm drinks. They sat in the small kitchen, the lights low, the soft hum of the outpost all around them. "Were you running from them?" he asked gently. Lena didn't answer at first. Then she said, "I was searching. I found you instead." Jorn looked at her. "Why me?" She smiled a little. "Because you were alone, and not afraid." The blinking light was brighter now, no longer a dot, but a shape, a shadow, barely seen, high above the sky. Jorn watched. It through his window. He didn't feel scared, but he did feel small. He turned to ask Lena what it was, but she was already beside him. Her hand touched the window, and her voice, soft and clear, said, "They will come for me. But now they see you too. Will they try to hurt me?" She looked at him for a long time, then said, "They do not understand kindness." Jorn didn't sleep that night. Lena sat close, resting her head on his shoulder. They didn't speak. There was nothing more to say. Outside, the blinking in the sky was no longer slow. It was fast now, closer, and something inside the signal had changed. Not just a name, a message, a warning, a choice. On the morning of the 6th day, Yorn stood outside the outpost looking up at the sky. The blinking light had grown larger. It was no longer just a signal, it was now a clear shape, round and smooth, like a dark moon floating above the clouds. It didn't move, it just hovered. Lena stood beside him, her face calm but serious. "That's their ship?" Jorn asked. She nodded. "One of many." He felt the wind shift around them. The trees were still. Even the birds had stopped flying. "Will they come down?" She looked at him. "They are already watching." Jorn took a deep breath. "What do they want?" Lena was quiet for a while. Then she said, "They want to take what they don't understand, and break what doesn't belong to them." Jorn looked at her. "Do you belong to them?" "I did, long ago." Inside the outpost, the signal grew louder. It came in waves now, soft pulses that made the walls vibrate gently. The lights flickered once, then again. Not strong enough to cause damage, but clear enough to be noticed. Jorn checked the systems. Everything looked fine, but it didn't feel fine. The machines were nervous, if machines could be. He turned to Lena. "What happens if they come here? They will test your world, your kindness, your strength. Will they hurt me?" "They don't understand fear the way you do," she said softly. "But they know how to take." Jorn frowned. "Then we protect this place." Lena looked at him with a strange expression. "You would stay, even if it means facing them?" "This is my home now," he said. And maybe yours too. That night a new sound came from the sky, a long, low hum, not from the signal, not from the machines. It came from above, from the ship itself. Lena stood by the window, eyes wide. They are testing your walls, she said, testing your mind. Jorn felt dizzy for a moment. His thoughts grew heavy as if someone was pushing into his head. He sat down, trying to breathe. Lena placed her hand on his forehead, and the pressure faded. They are searching for fear, she said. But I won't let them take yours. For them. The first time Jorn saw fear in her eyes, not for herself, for him. He looked at her and said, "We need to speak to them, somehow." Lena nodded. "We can use the signal, but not with words." Then how? She took his hand and led him to the lab. There, she pulled out the device she had made earlier, the one that pulsed with the signal's rhythm. She adjusted its settings, connected it to the main radio, and placed her hand on it. Jorn watched as the lights on the device shifted. She closed her eyes and began to hum. The sound was soft, deep, and clear. Not a song, not a language, something older, something that reached beyond words. The device responded, flashing in slow beats. Then the outpost lights flickered, the signal changed, and a voice, not human, not machine, echoed softly in the room. Subject known. Earth signal received. Return what is ours. Jorn froze. Lena opened her eyes. "No," she said clearly. "I am not yours." The voice repeated. "Subject must return. Host contact denied." Jorn stepped forward. "She's not your subject. She's free." The voice went silent. Then, "You are now marked." The lights turned red for a moment. The signal stopped. And the ship above grew darker. The message was clear. They had seen him. They knew his name now. Lena looked at him with worry. "They will not leave." Jorn nodded. "Then, neither will I." He looked up at the sky. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt ready. The next morning, the sky over the forest was strange. Clouds moved in slow circles. The air felt thicker. Even the sunlight seemed weaker. Jorn stepped outside, watching the huge ship above. It hadn't moved, but something had changed. It no longer blinked. It simply floated, silent and still, like it was waiting. He placed his hand on the side of the outpost, feeling its slight tremble. Machines inside were running harder now, even though nothing was damaged. Inside, Lena sat quietly. In the lab, her hands folded in her lap. "They are watching everything now," she said. "Even me?" She nodded. "Especially you." Jorn returned to the control room and opened the signal logs. The last message still echoed in his mind. "You are now marked." He didn't know what that meant fully, but he could guess. It wasn't just a warning. It was a decision. Now he was part of this. Not just a helper, not just a human on a lonely planet. He was in their path, and they didn't forget. Lena came to stand beside him. She touched his shoulder lightly and whispered, "They think you're weak, that you'll run." "I won't," Jorn replied. She nodded. "I know." That evening, Jorn looked at the small things Lena had given him over the weeks. The glowing flower, the metal star, the smooth stone. They weren't just gifts, they were memories. Pieces of her world. She had left behind her people, her ship, and her past. She had chosen silence, chosen to observe. But now she had chosen to stand beside him. That meant something. Jorn knew they had to send a message back, stronger this time. Not just to speak, but to show. Together they worked through the night. They rebuilt the signal device, making it stronger. Lena added symbols from her own language. Jorn programmed the outpost to send a full energy burst with the message, not just through sound, but through light, heat, and movement. It was dangerous. It might attract more of them, but it would show them one thing clearly. He would protect her. Before they sent it, Lena stopped him. "Are you sure?" she asked. Jorn looked at her. "You ran from them, you didn't fight. I didn't believe I could win, and now," she looked into his eyes, "now I believe in you." The device was activated. A deep hum filled the outpost. The lights flickered as power surged through the cables. The message was short but powerful. It had one word. No. It was simple, but it was enough. Outside, the ground shook slightly. The trees bent as wind rushed over them. The ship above blinked once, then silence. Too quiet. Lena looked up sharply. They heard it, and now they decide. The next hour felt endless. Jorn waited near the window. Lena sat beside him, watching the sky. Then suddenly, a beam of light shot down from the ship, striking the forest just beyond the outpost. It didn't burn. It didn't destroy, but something stepped out of it. A figure, tall, thin, and not fully clear, like a shadow wrapped in glass. Its shape shifted as it walked. Slowly toward them, Jorn stepped forward. Lena grabbed his hand. "Don't speak," she whispered. "They hear through thought." The figure stopped a few meters away. It tilted its head as if studying them. Then, in Jorn's mind, a voice echoed. "You choose to defy. You choose to keep what is broken." Jorn didn't answer. He only stared back. The voice continued. "She will change you. You will change her. That cannot be allowed." Lena stepped in front of him. Her voice was calm, steady. "She is not broken," Jorn said out loud. "And neither am I." The figure stood still for a long time. Then it turned and walked back into the beam of light. The ship above rumbled softly, and then it began to rise, up, away, into the clouds. Lena leaned against him. "They left?" "For now," Jorn said quietly. "But I don't think this is the end." She nodded. "No, but it is the beginning of something new." And as the stars returned to the sky, the two of them stood together, changed, connected, and no longer alone. The sky was quiet again. The large ship that had watched them for days was gone, leaving only thin clouds and the soft light of the moon behind. The signal had stopped. The outpost no longer trembled. The air felt light again. But inside Jorn, something had changed. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't even confused anymore. He was ready. Lena walked beside him through the forest, her steps gentle and silent as always. They were not searching for anything. They just walked, together, feeling the ground, the wind, and the life around them. It was the first time in many days that the world felt normal, and yet nothing was the same. Back at the outpost, Jorn made tea. The small machine hissed and poured steam into 2 cups. He handed one to Lena. She held it close, warming her fingers. "You spoke to them," she said softly, "and they listened." Jorn smiled a little. "I think they were surprised. They don't understand choice, not like you do." He looked at her carefully. "They said I was changing you." Lena nodded. "I feel it. My thoughts are softer now. My heart moves in different ways." "Is that bad?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "No, it's not bad. It's just new." Jorn sat at his desk and opened the daily log. He stared at the screen for a while, then typed, "Day 104. The sky is clear. The signal is gone. But I'm not alone. She stays. And somehow I feel more human because of her." He saved the log and turned to her. "What happens next?" he asked. Lena tilted her head. "You live, and I learn." "That simple?" "Maybe not," she said with a small smile. "But it's a start." Over the next few days, life became quiet again. Jorn returned to his routines, checking the soil, monitoring the weather, recording forest activity. But now, Lena helped him. She showed him how the trees reacted to tiny changes in light. She taught him to hear the way animals moved through the grass. She even helped him find water underground, using her hands and her mind. She was still quiet, still strange, still full of mystery, but she was no longer just watching. She was with him. One evening, they sat on the roof of the outpost, watching the stars. Jorn pointed at a bright one. "That's Earth," he said. "I've never been there," Lena replied, "but I feel close to it now." "Would you go?" he asked. She looked at him. "Not without you." He didn't answer, but his heart beat faster. Something in that moment felt deep and real. Not just friendship, not just kindness, something that went beyond words. The next morning, Lena stood by the window staring into the distance. "There's something coming," she said. Jorn stood beside her. "Another ship?" "No, not like before. Something smaller but not safe." He nodded. "Then we get ready." This time there was no panic, no fear. They began to prepare quietly, checking energy levels, securing the shield dome, locking important data files. Lena created a new device using leftover parts. It was small and sharp, like a spike of light. "Gift from my old world," she said, "in case we need it." Jorn added it to the outpost's tools. Whatever was coming, they would face it, together. That night, Jorn could not sleep. He walked quietly into the main room and found Lena sitting near the glowing stone she once gave him. She looked up. "You're awake," she said. "So are you." He sat down beside her. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked. Lena nodded slowly. "They always do. When they can't control something, they try to destroy it." "But we're not broken," he said. "No," she agreed. "We are whole, and we are strong." Outside, a distant sound echoed, soft like wind through a tunnel. Something was coming, but this time they were ready. The sound came again the next morning, a low hum, like a quiet engine. Not in the sky. This time, it came from the forest. Jorn stood outside the outpost with his scanner. The device picked up movement, small, fast, and close to the ground. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't an animal either. "Something is near," he said to Lena. She stepped beside him, her eyes sharp. Not one of them, but still from their world. "You mean a scout?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, sent to test us. Maybe to remove us." Jorn looked toward the trees. The forest felt colder than usual. Even the birds were quiet again. He held his tool bag tighter. "We should go see it before it sees us." They moved carefully into the trees, walking without speaking. Lena led the way. She never made a sound. Her feet seemed to float above the leaves. Jorn followed close behind. Then they saw it. Half hidden under thick branches, a small silver machine stood still. It was shaped like a spider, but made of metal with blinking lights on its legs. One of its red eyes glowed as it turned slowly in a circle. "It's searching," Lena whispered. "It doesn't know where we are yet." Jorn reached into his pack and pulled out a signal scrambler. "Can we stop it?" Lena looked at the device, then nodded. "But we must be fast. If it sends data back, they'll know we're still here." Jorn turned the dial on the scrambler and aimed it at the spider machine. Lena placed her hands on the ground and closed her eyes. The earth beneath the spider shifted slightly. Then, crack, the signal hit. The spider froze. Its legs twitched once. Then, it fell silent. Jorn stepped forward slowly and picked it up. It was light, cold and strange. "They sent this to test if we were alone," Lena said. "Now they'll know we're not." Back at the outpost, Jorn placed the machine on the work table. Lena took it apart quickly. Inside there were wires, crystals, and a small black cube glowing faintly. "That's the core," she said. It holds memory. Can we erase it? She shook her head. Too late. It already sent a short message. Not everything, but enough. Jorn rubbed his face. So what happens now? Lena looked up at him, her face calm but serious. They will send someone. That night Jorn prepared the defense systems. The shield dome was powered on. All entrances were locked. The lights inside were dimmed. Every sound seemed louder in the quiet. Lena stood at the window. She didn't speak, but her eyes never left the tree line. Then, just past midnight, it arrived. Not a ship, not a machine, a person, tall, thin and wearing something like a dark suit made of glass and shadow. The figure walked slowly toward the outpost, stopping just outside the shield. Jorn watched from inside. The figure raised a hand and touched the energy wall. It didn't try to break through, it just stood there. Then it spoke. Not out loud, but in Jorn's mind. You protect what cannot be saved. Jorn stepped forward. I protect who I choose. The voice came again. You are marked. You have changed her. That is a crime. Jorn clenched his fists. She is not a thing to own. She is free. The figure tilted its head. Then you both must face the result. With that, it turned and walked back into the trees. Gone. Just like that. But Jorn knew. This was the final warning. Lena stood beside him. They won't speak again. No, Jorn said. Next time they'll attack. She looked at him, her voice quiet. We have one chance left, to make them see or stop them ourselves. Jorn took her hand. Then, we make that chance count. The forest was still. No birds, no wind, no sound. Jorn stood on the roof of the outpost, looking at the sky. Lena stood beside him, her hair glowing faintly under the soft moonlight. It's time, she said. Jorn didn't ask how she knew. He already felt it. Something heavy was moving above the clouds. Something large, larger than the last ship, maybe not just one, maybe many. They want to erase us, Lena said quietly. They're afraid, Jorn replied. She turned to him. So are you? He looked into her eyes. No, not anymore. They went inside to prepare. Jorn powered up the outpost's main core. Lights turned red across the panels. The defense field pulsed brighter. Everything that could be locked was locked. Lena brought out the glowing spike she had made earlier. This is our last tool, she said. Not a weapon, but something more. What does it do? He asked. It speaks, she said. Not with words, with memory, with truth. She placed it on the center table. The crystal inside began to glow brighter, pulsing with a rhythm, like a heartbeat. Jorn felt it deep in his chest. What memory is inside? He asked. She looked at him softly. Mine. The sky lit up. A beam of white light struck the hill, just beyond the outpost. Trees shook. Rocks lifted off the ground. Another ship appeared, huge, black and silent. Then a voice filled the sky. You were warned. You refused. This is your last moment. Jorn stood outside the shield, the spike. In his hands, he held it up. We are not broken. We are not yours. The ship did not move. The voice returned. Then you choose destruction. Lena stepped forward. Her body began to glow, just like the crystal. She placed her hand on Jorn's. We choose life, she said. And then she pressed her other hand to the spike. The spike lit up, bright, powerful, alive. It shot light into the sky like a signal tower. The light didn't attack the ship. It touched it, entered it, spread through it. And then, something amazing happened. The ship stopped moving, not frozen, not broken, just still. A long silence followed. Then the voice came again, softer now. What is this? Jorn felt it too. The memory, Lena's memory, her pain, her fear, her loneliness, and her change, her curiosity, her peace, her love. All of it was inside the light, and the ones above could feel it. For a full minute, nothing moved. Then, slowly, the ship began to rise. It made no sound, no threat, no attack, just movement, upward, farther and farther, until it vanished into the stars. Jorn let out a long breath. Lena sat on the grass, tired but calm. "They saw," she said. He sat beside her. "They felt what you are. What we are," she said with a smile. Jorn looked up at the sky. "Will they come back?" "Maybe, but not to fight. Maybe, to learn." He reached for her hand. "And if they do?" She looked at him, eyes warm. "Then, we'll be ready again, together." Days passed. The outpost was quiet again. No signals, no ships. Just the sound of the wind, birds, and the soft voice of the forest. Jorn continued his work, checking the soil, watching the stars, writing in his log. Lena stayed by his side, learning, exploring, living. One night, as they sat by the fire outside the outpost, Jorn looked at her and said, "When you first came, you were quiet, curious, always watching." She nodded. "I didn't understand you then." "And now?" Jorn smiled. "Now I'm glad you crawled into my life." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. "No more running," she whispered. "No more hiding," he replied. Above them, the stars shined brighter than ever, and far beyond, someone was still listening. But they were no longer enemies. They were witnesses, to a bond stronger than fear, to a choice no power could break, to the quiet strength of something truly human, to hope.